of the company to be in order. No negative exceptions were noted on the report. And it is worth noting that during that year, ended June 30th, 2011, the Academy's founder made contributions to the account of the Academy of $441,500 that were used to fund the Academy's operations.
How much was that, Manny?
$441,500.
Is that money that's going to be reimbursed back, or?
No, that was a contribution to the Academy.
Okay, and can I, just for the record, what was the contribution? Why was it required to, or was it required to have that contribution?
The contract in order to fulfill all of the Academy's obligations.
Including the grading expenses?
Yes. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to move to operations, the only item on operations is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment inventory. We have completed an inventory of all the FF&E in the school, and it's on the company's books of records. The auditors reviewed it and took that as part of our audit book statement.
You move to personnel?
Yeah, I think Mr. Suarez will probably take faculty and staffing.
Okay. Faculty, we had about four teachers that were right now we have Phil, there's one that's it's Phil, but it's in the process of being cleared the district from fingerprinting and personnel.
PTSA, the participants in the PSA?
Is this a discussion?
This is a discussion.
Yes.
Well, let me just kind of, I've been dealing with this for a little while, and I guess I have several questions. Now that we have our attorney here, maybe there's some things that we as a board have not had an opportunity to discuss. There's been this constant bad-mouthing, false information, a lot of derogatory statements that have been made about the founders and the board members, and a lot of complaints that have gone into these really nasty little blogs in the community. I don't know how many people are paying attention to that stuff, but usually don't pay attention to the rags, but it bothers me as a board member that an auxiliary organization that is supposed to be formulated, PTSAs across the nation are formulated to support a school and to be sort of like cheerleaders for a school. They are intended to be an addition and an enhancement to the efforts of the school and the school board and the faculty, and particularly to really reinforce the students. And in this case, I don't see any constructive action whatsoever. No fundraising, no support, no positive anything. I just see a lot of really negative and nasty and personal attacks to the extent that even I've seen some things on Facebook that I would not want a student to even think that somebody associated with the school has put on Facebook. I've seen some things in the rag papers that I know are false, and I would not want somebody to get the impression that, especially if I was a parent here, that my kid is in a school where the PTSA feels that way about the founders of the board. So I, for one, question how the PTSA can continue to operate on this campus, in this environment, and be so negative against the school and not have anything to show that would be either comparable to the way that other PTSAs operate in their schools. And I raise that question, and I wonder, to what extent can they continue to use the school's name and continue to try to tear the school down?
comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. And, you know, I serve on this board as a volunteer, and I serve on this board because I love the school, I love the mission of the school, I think it's a great school. But I mean, you know, when I look at this and I read words like false, bigoted, libelous, you know, and other words, that is a cause of concern to me. And of course, you know, at the board's pleasure, but I think this is probably something that's better discussed in an executive session with our attorney than not.
Well, I guess my question as a board member is that I have to ask the question, and I don't know if it will ever be answered, but I don't see the end game. I don't see what the objective is. You know, if you don't like a school or you don't agree with what's going on, especially if you have kids in that school, you typically will make a choice as to whether you put that kid in the school or not. But if you're involved in the school, it seems to me that all of us that are involved in the school ought to be about the business of trying to build the school, make it the best place for students, have a good environment, and certainly to have a good image for the school that our kids are going to. I don't have kids in the school, and I know I work very hard to try to help make the school the best place for other people's kids to go to. So it just baffles me as to what's the end game? Is the intent to tear the school down? Because that's the only thing that I can see these kinds of activities do. Is there something that somebody wants to see happen that we don't know? As board members, if we understood why there's this super negative action, then maybe if something made sense, or if there was something concrete where we could say, well, what we want is this, this, and this. It certainly can't be just records because the records are being provided. So what's the end game? What's the point? Is it to close the school down? Is it to cause a negative image in the community? That's all I can see that's happening. At the end of the day, it won't be board members that are hurt from this. It won't be founders. It will be the students themselves. And if a student is in a school where all this negative stuff is being said, the only people that can come out of this hurt are the students. And that's why I'm confused. I don't understand, you know, at the end of the day, people can disagree with things, they can find fault, they can think our judgment is bad or whatever, but it doesn't take all this negative, it's some vicious, negative stuff, underhanded stuff. I've seen some emails that are so unconscionable, and we choose not to deal with it, but at the end of the day, the impact is really on the students who are going here to this school. If it's all in the blogs that this is such a bad school and the board members are so incompetent and everybody's a crook and stuff, nobody's going to be affected by that. It's not true, but the impact will be that a negative image on the school that these kids go to. And that bothers me, that if it came from people outside the school, I would say, well, maybe they're competitive. Maybe it's another school that feels like, you know, they're better than this school. But this is coming from groups of people and parents who are already in the school, have their kids in the school, and are supposed to be leaders in the school. That is an enigma. It baffles the mind. And I just want to go on the record to say that I think that at some point this has to be dealt with, and either there's a meeting of the minds where, you know, two groups, it's almost like what President Obama is dealing with, and he's saying, you know, you can't have peace unless you sit down and talk about it. And even though if you're at two different odds, at least the reasonable and rational thing to do is to sit down like professional people and like decent people and talk about it and come to some type of compromise over something that's concrete. Since there's nothing concrete, I don't know what the expectation is on this board or on this school. And my biggest concern is that these kids will end up being harmed as a result of these actions. So it's on the record. I'm on the record. That's where I stand, and I feel very strongly about that.
Cece, I agree with you. And all that being said, when I see words like false and bigoted and libelous and, you know, other adjectives and words in here, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, because if that is the case, then it needs to be remedied. Because I don't know that we move anything forward by putting this on here, and, it's a he said, she said, basically. So I would, when, I'm sure that we'll have to have an executive session at some point to discuss the particulars of the lawsuit. I think we should add that to the agenda and